Good evening and welcome to Gibson's Bookstore Remote. I am Elizabeth from Gibson's Bookstore, and I am joined this evening by author KJ Dell'Antonia, the author of The Chicken Sisters, which was a Reese's Book Club pick. We are very excited to have her join us. She is a New Hampshire author, and we love supporting New Hampshire authors. I read it. I enjoyed it very much. And she is joined now by her friend, Jessica Hunt from NHPR. You two are good friends. Please, thank you for joining us this evening. Take it away.
Well, I know KJ through NHPR, through my work on our talk show, The Exchange, and KJ is our straight talk parenting expert who we can rely on for, especially after your book, How to Be a Happier Parent, which was so great. Actually, I highly recommend. I gave to my niece. So that's how I think of you, KJ, totally in the nonfiction realm. Where did the novel come from?
You know, I have always intended and wanted to write fiction. And I think that the honest truth is that, so I was a lawyer before I was a journalist. And when I went from my perfectly respectable and parent-funded career as a lawyer, it seemed more approachable and more possible to do nonfiction. There are very few gold stars awarded in fiction writing when you first get started. No one will hire you to do it. There is no real ladder. You can't. Whereas with nonfiction, really, if you take a professional approach, you know, you can do it. Like you can sort of work your way up a sort of a set ladder. It is a profession. So I think the truth is that I was scared to jump to fiction until I had managed to get that nonfiction success under my belt. So I've been writing fiction since I was 9, actually, when I first moved away from my best friend and we started trading Trixie Belden fan fiction letters because nerds. Yeah.
How long have you had this in your back pocket?
Oh, so I started writing this in 2018, really. I've been toying with it for a long time, but in terms of really sitting down and writing it in earnest and getting a draft out, it was 2018.
And how did Reese happen upon it? How did that all happen?
Magic. I can only assume. Fairies. I got a bunch of guesses there. I think that every female author, people must just back trucks up to her house every day with every female authored book out there, because she truly does seem to, it's not like, we're not besties now. I've barely exchanged, but I have, exchanged a few words. But, from everything that I've seen and everything that I've heard from the people that she works with, she's picking those books herself. They got no control over her, and she's all over the map, right? She's picked Fair Play, which was a nonfiction book about equalizing your family life. She's picked short stories. There's Edward Dannycott's short stories from recently. She's done memoir. Her group was the one before me. Everything. She seems to just, if she likes it and she thinks her people like it. I think she avoids politics, but other than that, and not entirely, because some of the memoir that she chose especially over the summer was certainly on the political spectrum.
Well, I think of you as like you're a very New Hampshire person to me. You live in the middle of nowhere, as far as I can tell. You have animals and lots of kids that you're driving around to hockey and all these things back pre-pandemic days. So
tonight we watched hockey on Live Barn, which is the hockey equivalent of Zoom. It's the saddest. I won't really, because to me they just look like little blobs. But my husband's sitting there cheering and paying attention. And it just seems to me every time I look up, the screen freezes. So I just get frustrated. But yeah.
So I was so surprised when I didn't, when this novel was set somewhere else.
Oh yeah?
Yeah. What's
So my next novel set in New Hampshire. I will say that, and I don't think that's going to change.
Ooh.
But so I grew up in Texas and Kansas, actually, and my folks grew up in a small town, actually sort of two neighboring small towns, in much the same way that like Hanover and Norwich are the same, and Lyme and Thetford, only they were on the same in the same state. And the two small towns had two chicken restaurants. They're called Chicken Annie's and Chicken Mary's, and they are real. And fortunately, they've been lovely. The story is not I know nothing about the history of Chicken Annie's and Chicken Mary's, and I set out to know nothing about it once I really started writing in earnest. So, but yeah, that I mean, I live in a tiny town now, so and I grew up in Kansas, and I've noticed that books set in small towns it's like a cute little English town or a cute little Southern town. There's never a cute little Kansas town. And I was like, Kansas deserves its Gilmore Girls town, right? That's what I want my fictional town to be like. So it's a lot smaller than the actual towns, and but it kind of needed to be for the book. So
well, that's interesting. So it seems like you're sort of rewriting your past. Like, this is how I wanted it to be.
Well, I didn't live there. I mean, I never lived there, and that's kind of part of it too. I was really jealous of my cousins who did live there, because here I was, an only child who moved around a lot, and here they were with this completely rooted existence in a town where, you know, everybody knew them and knew who their grandparents and their great uncles and everything were. Now, you know, as I got older, I could also see the disadvantages of that. And that is definitely to some, and then now, I mean, our town is, I think, 1,600 people. You know, we're one of the New Hampshire towns where you go sit in the gym and raise your hand to vote on whether or not we need a new road grader. That's, you know, and so I can now see both the advantages and the disadvantages of that kind of small town life. So I kind of gave those to May and Amanda. We've got, you know, May, who's really desperate to leave, and Amanda, who only wants to stay. And what they kind of have to learn is that the other one had a point.
Well, let's talk about those two characters. I just like the way the sisters, this is the original sisters who started the chicken shacks, or whatever you call them.
I do. I call them chicken shacks. I don't think the restaurants would not call themselves chicken shacks. I don't know why I started doing it, but that's what I call them.
Okay, good. Yes, I liked that reverberation between the sets of sisters all the way through, and brothers. Was there a brother? Am I thinking that wrong? Am I thinking wrong?
Well, one of the sisters had a son, and he's the one that really took it over. So right. Yeah, right. So that side of the family didn't go back to women, and the woman that runs it now is that son's wife. So she's a chicken in-law.
Right. Why did you decide you wanted them to like flip back and forth between the point of view?
Oh, you know, I know that people hate both characters at different points of the book. And I think if it had only been one point of view, it would have been impossible to convey that they were equally culpable for the terrible things they do in the name of reality TV victory. So there was that. And yeah, it's a more, I really like looking at someone through somebody else's eyes and also getting that person's perspective. So I thought it was neat that you get, you know what Amanda thinks, who Amanda thinks she is, and you know who Amanda thinks May thinks she is, but you also know who May really thinks Amanda is. And I just really like that.
Yeah, I like that a lot. I started out thinking like, I am going to identify with Amanda because I live in my hometown. and my parents live down the street, and, you know, I'm a little artsy. So I was like, I will like her. And then I was like, I actually found through the book that May was not as dislikable as I thought she was going to be. And I liked her, how much she grew. And I was like, I actually like her. So yeah, I identified with both of them.
Well, when I started writing, I identified with May much more strongly. And, you know, I did leave. So that isn't too surprising. But the more I wrote, the more and more sympathetic I became to Amanda, to the point where by the end, I felt sort of like she was more my favorite. And I think she takes a lot of heat because she does maybe, maybe she does the worst things in the plot, although you could argue it.
Yeah.
But you know, she had good reason, like, and she thought she was doing it for the best. And I feel like she has sort of throughout their lives had a slightly better handle on what's really important.
Yeah, I liked them both, and I think
That's good.
that was fun to go back and forth. And
That's so funny. I'll frequently be reading, when I read a book with two points of views, I don't like it when I only like one of them, because then I just kind of, and then like sometimes you'll skim the one that you don't really like, and then you're like, oh, but now I don't know how did they get to Paris? You know, and you have to go back.
now, why did you want to make Amanda a vegetarian?
She just was a vegetarian. That was so, and it's so funny because I've gotten so many, oh, this is great, I would never have thought I could identify with someone in a fried chicken book comments. But I don't know, as I was writing her, I think that was her tiny rebellion, like, and something that she, you know, she couldn't control much, but she could control that. So you know, I don't know that I thought that through, but that's, looking back on it, I think that's very, very, very much true. There would have been, I mean, this is, there's lots of cutting room floor stuff. And there was absolutely a fairly dramatic incident in which Barbara accidentally poisoned Amanda, which is now just referenced briefly, with her old chicken.
Right. I love the moms. I think they're really like smart. Like there are several times where they're like, they say a thing and it's cut right through all the baloney that the two sisters are. They're just like, or they may be speaking to one of them, but I'm like, wow, they are the truth tellers in this.
Yep. You gotta have some truth tellers. I think that's one of the fun things about fiction is that as you read, there's almost always a truth teller. And I would love to have somebody in my life. Who knows? Maybe we all have them in our lives and they're saying it and we're totally ignoring them. It's entirely possible. But you know, I feel like it'd be great to have somebody go, you know, the real reason you did such and such was, that would be cool. I think that's one of the things we like about fiction is that people get those characters around them who have their backs, and everything is so much tighter and closer and more contained. And you know, most of us, real life stories aren't like that.
Yeah. And I just liked it because I thought it was like a very powerful older women saying, you know, just like, I'm just going to tell you what's going on here. I like those characters a lot. Do you have a sister?
Nope.
No.
Isn't that funny?
Yeah.
No, I am an only child. I have two daughters. And so I see sibling relationships up, and I also have two sons. So I see that a lot. And I also have a very, very, very best friend, which is totally different. And I don't say that it's the same, but the one thing that is similar is that we went through a period when we both had kids at pretty much the same time, when basically if she said, I'm feeding my kid Cheerios and I was feeding my kid Life, I took that as a judgment. Like, well, Life is just as good as Cheerios. And she would be the same way. She'd be like, well, no, I mean, I think that Cheerios are really, you know, and we could just like really end up like sort of fighting bitterly over, and the other person didn't mean it as a judgment, or maybe they did sometimes. It's just, yeah. So we had that sort of like just feeling judged by each other every minute. And that, I think, is what Amanda and May have, that's where they ended up in their relationship, unintentionally.
You just made me flash to something, and I was thinking, how are you doing book events during this pandemic? Yeah. Were you looking forward to like going to Kansas and doing?
Yeah. So, I mean, I had all kinds of things set up. I was really looking forward to, if you think about it, there are not that many books set in the Midwest. J. Ryan Straddle he wrote The Lager Clean of Minnesota and Great Kitchens of the Midwest. Those are awesome. There's a writer who I could find her on the shelf. She's a romance writer, and they're mostly set in Chicago. I just read, oh my gosh, one of these on this list. Oh, I feel like I just read it. Oh, The Butterfly Effect. That's it. Rachel Mans McKinney, The Butterfly Effect. But there aren't that many. Like, people set books on the coasts. So the bookstores in the Midwest were excited, and I was excited, and it was, and it's still been fun. Like I've done lots of Zooming events, but from a bookstore perspective too, like every author, so I've got a nonfiction book too. Every author's had the experience of going to a bookstore and being in an event with like one sad person who wandered in by accident, and now they're stuck because they feel too bad for you to leave. So there's that. But I've also been a part of really successful bookstore events where like the bookstore sold out on every single book and sent somebody to the bookstore down the road and bought out all their copies. And I'm so sad that like that can't happen. I hope that everybody who's listening will click through, and if it's not my book, if you've already read it, order something else from Gibson's. I have a list at the end for what we should put up of things that I have loved lately, and I put Gibson's links in all of it, and I'm going to put it all over because the bookstores are being great to do this stuff and to host it and organize it, and I just want them to stay alive. I love them.
We endorse this message.
I think we've discovered they're really important in a community. Yeah. Andy, let's talk about Andy. We want more of Andy. And we want to know what happens. Is there a sequel?
There is actually an epilogue. So I always intended to write, I love it, in a happy ending-y book, which is what I write, or wrote anyway, and probably will continue to write. I love it when there's a thing at the end that's like 6 months later. Like the bromance books have those, lots of books. I really like it. And I always meant to do one. And for whatever reason, I didn't until October. So we're not kidding ourselves that this was ever going to make it into the printed book. It was not. But so I did one, and there is an epilogue, and you do see Amanda and Andy getting a little closer together and sort of what happens next. And there's a link to that on my website, which is kjdell'antonia.com. And it's just free. It's a PDF. Nothing, you end up on a mailing list, but you can get off of it. It's just that I never finished it until, it was too late. So, but yeah, Andy was super fun to write and think about. I wish I could have spent more time with it.
Yeah, there was, I was thinking in this book, I was like, there was not a lot of sex in this book. And there were very few chickens, actually.
Also true. Also true. Yeah, somebody sent me a picture of their 11-year-old reading it, and I was like, yeah, well, there was a little bit of stuff that was maybe a little weird, but other than that, no reason why not.
Yeah, pretty clean for a romance, for sort of a romance.
Kind of. It's got romance.
Yeah.
It's commercial women's fiction, and why we define that any differently than other regular fiction, I cannot tell you, but we do.
Yeah. And Sabrina, do you know a Sabrina?
I don't know a Sabrina specifically, but I had a teeny tiny reality TV experience when like 20 years ago, probably. I don't think this ever even became a show, or if it did, I don't know where, but there was supposed to be a show about surprise parties. And my boss actually was going to throw this surprise party for someone that she knew. And she was very gregarious and invited all of us to this surprise party. And it was going to be filmed for this reality TV show. So we go, and there's all this, all right, well, come in the door again and, greet each other again and do this again. And then the guest of honor got stuck in the snow somewhere. I want to say he was at an airport somewhere, although why they would have had all of us at the party if he was at a distant airport from New York City, that doesn't make any sense to me. So I must be remembering that wrong. But anyway, the guest could never get there. So I, watched these producers sort of flailing around and trying to turn this situation into, an episode for their fledgling show. And it was pretty funny, and it obviously stuck with me. And then beyond that, like, I did a lot of reading. People who are on reality TV shows, they write about the experience a lot, and that is very helpful. Thank you, people who are on reality TV shows and write about it.
Good. So, and do you watch a lot of food?
I watch them. I like them. Yeah, I mostly like the cooking competition, not the cooking competition ones, not the ones, I don't really like it where they try to get people upset with each other, but I do, I like it where it's like, you have 15 minutes to make cupcakes with these 3 silly ingredients. Yeah, I'm all about that. That's fine. I'll watch that. And I used to watch the ones where they were like, we are going to renovate this house, and we have to get it done in 1 week. And, after a while, you're like, you could take 2 weeks. It doesn't really matter. This is just, so actually neighbors down the road from me their house was an extreme home makeover. And the result is, people have said that there are things that kind of got done quickly because they had to get it done quickly. So it's just kind of funny.
Yeah, and actually you got some of that into the book with the, running around.
Yeah.
Making things look perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's how they get everybody all excited and worked up, what if it was just like, we're just going to watch Jessica remodel her living room very slowly by, slowly searching for a couch and taking 6 months to decide and then 8 months to get one. Like that would not make for very exciting TV.
Yeah. Yeah.
At this point, I think, we'd all watch it. We'd be like, sure. We'll look at couches with you.
I was like, I was surprised. Like, I kept waiting for the show. I wanted to see the show in the book. And there was a little of that, but I then realized it's all the background stuff that's way more interesting. And there's all kinds of things going on that's much more interesting than the dumb
And kind of the whole point is whatever they choose to put on the show is not necessarily what's really going on.
Yeah.
They're just making choices. So that was something that, May knew, but Amanda did not. And, she needed to recognize that they were not going to solve her problems. They were just going to make them into a story.
I'm trying to think how much of sort of the town or I'm thinking of the cottonwood tree when they went down and it had fallen down. Mm-hmm. I gasped. I was like, oh my gosh. How much of that was set there that is that a kind of tree that grows in Kansas?
Yeah. Oh yeah, no, the nature of it is all exactly what you would get in sort of southeastern Kansas, which is where this was. And it would be it's hillier and treeier than you would think in that part of Kansas. This is not like the plains of Kansas. This is right on the Missouri line. So it's not, it's not necessarily what people picture. And yeah, cottonwood trees just fall down. They're like, if they're here, they're like popple trees. That would be the New Hampshire equivalent. They're like that, they grow really fast and then they're just gone.
And their roots are shallow. Yeah. That's pretty cool. And can you talk a little bit about the chicken shacks that you went to as a kid? Or
Oh,
whatever age you were. What age were you? Like,
from like babyhood. I couldn't even tell you the first time I went to one. Every time we went, we would go at least once. And these are the kinds of restaurants where, and I don't know what they're like now, you know, it's been a long time, but at the time they're the kind of place where you get the plate and it's got the divided, you know, it's the melamine plate with the divided sections. And your mom makes you have some green beans on there, even though you don't want the part. And in my case, you just pick all the chicken skin off and eat the crispy bits. And this predates French fries with everything. So there would be mashed potatoes, and Chicken Annie's had Budweiser stuff everywhere because it was a very Budweiser town. I can't explain that, but my grandfather worked for Budweiser. So I had a variety of exciting age-appropriate Budweiser toys, such as Budman, a stuffed, he was kind of like a cushy, he was like, he probably would have floated. He was foam. But, you know, of course, you know, that's what you give your 3-year-old, right? Here's your Bud man. And I had a Budweiser chest to keep all my treasures in, and all my beach towels and everything like that were all highly age appropriate Budweiser things. And we still have some of those because beach towels turn out to be something that stays with you for your whole life. I'm going to put that in a book at some point. You don't realize when you buy your first beach towel that you'll die with that beach towel. I don't know why, but they just, am I right? You just, yeah. Beach towels never die.
Yeah. And how often do they go to the beach if you live in New Hampshire?
That could be part of it. But even with a regular swimming pool habit, as I had in Kansas, the beach towels still, you know, then they just become dog towels.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. So anyway, Chicken Annie's had all this. They had like a thing over the pool table, it was a light, and the Clydesdales went around the outside of it. Anybody who's been in one of these places is gonna, you know, they had the cool neon stuff. To me, it was just like, and I didn't grow up in a family. We didn't go out to dinner very much. So to go where my grandparents were and to go there, it was huge. It was a huge deal. There's a reason that I remember it.
And did you go to both of them?
No, we only went to Chicken Annie's. I've been to Chicken Mary's once. I know I have. And I feel like it was when I was older and maybe some of my grandparents weren't around anymore. That is entirely possible. I don't remember the details. But no, we only ate at Chicken Annie's.
Oh, that's so funny.
Apparently, the people in Pittsburgh tell me that's not the way it is anymore. If you eat at one, you probably eat at both of them. But that's how it was for us anyway.
And that's amazing.
They're still there. There are 5 of them now. And amusingly, they now are actually run by the same family. They weren't part of the same. In fact, and they weren't started by sisters. They weren't related at all. How they came to have the same name, I just still don't know. I should ask. But yeah, so eventually somebody married into the other family, and now they run all of them. And there's 5. There's 3 right in the place where I wrote about. There's one in Joplin, and I'm not sure where the other one is.
And
but they're a big deal. Like,
and is the chicken different at each one?
I remember it as different, but I don't know how it is now. Like, yeah, I remember it as just a little different, just a little funky. But they were, you know, sort of very much family owned, and I got the coolest email from a guy who said that he had grown up working the cash register at Chicken Mary's for his grandmother since he was 5 years old. And so that was starting in like 1960. And now he lives in California and he's a flight attendant and he lives with his partner, Dave. And so it gave me sort of that Kenneth and Patrick vibe. Like I could picture what growing up there starting in 1960, if you're going to end up with as a flight attendant with your partner, Dave, was like, without him really, he didn't say anything about that, but it was there. So that was kind of neat. I felt echoes of what I had done.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he wasn't like, he liked it. Everybody's liked it. That's I mean, that's not true. Like there are people that read it, it's not for them, and that's totally fine. But in terms of like the restaurants and the people in Pittsburgh, they're pleased. I was a little worried that they would be offended or think I had stolen their history, or not like that Barbara was a hoarder or something like, or that I might accidentally sort of trample on somebody's history that I was unaware of. But that does not seem to have happened. So
that's nice. Yeah. Yeah. And how often do you make fried chicken at your house?
We do make fried chicken, especially since A, since this book, and B, since pandemic. So our pandemic purchase was, we used to have like, it was they used to be called fry babies, but what we had was called a fry daddy. And it was basically a metal pot with a handle that you poured a lot of oil into, and then you could plug it into the wall and it would turn and you could fry things in it. But it had a plastic lid, and I cleaned it out and I put the plastic lid on it. And then one of my children decided to make donuts. So they got it out and they plugged it in, and it didn't have any oil in it. And it did have a plastic lid on it, and they did not take it off. So tragedy struck and the fry daddy was no more. And we took that as an excuse to go and buy a real proper deep fryer with a basket. It's not very big. It's only, it's a little tiny countertop thing, but man, we fried everything. That's been what we did for pandemic. We fried chicken, fried Brussels sprout. The only thing I haven't fried is okra. I need to fry okra. Everybody, I should definitely do that. We fried tofu. Yeah. Donuts. All the
something called an air fryer now.
We have an air fryer too. We have a big kitchen with all the junk, but you can't make fried chicken you can reheat fried chicken in an air fryer. And I have seen recipes, but I don't know. I'm just not going to bother. If I make fried chicken, I make fried chicken.
Yeah, I wondered about that. And I wondered how much you actually ate it, but it sounds like fair.
Well, I would eat it all the time, except it is hard. And I want to hear like where people, so the best fried chicken up here.
Yeah.
There's the Latham House Tavern in Lyme, has pretty good fried chicken sandwich, and they often have fried chicken, but they put it on mashed sweet potatoes, and then they put like a maple syrup glaze all over it. And I think I don't want that. I just want the chicken. And then Woodstock, Worthy Kitchen, that's in Vermont. Excellent fried chicken. That's about it around here. Do you have any good fried chicken in Concord?
No.
Oh.
I have rarely eaten fried chicken, probably for that reason. Sorry.
When I go down to visit my folks who are in Texas now, we go to a place called Babes, and the interior of chicken frannies, to the extent that it's described as the interior of Babes, with all kinds of goofy signs and stuff like that. And the salad that they serve at Chicken Mimi's is the salad from Babes. Sorry, Babes, I stole it from you.
And that's in Texas.
That's in Texas, but it's a fried chicken restaurant, and I've been there a lot more recently than I've been to Chicken Annie's and Chicken Mary's. So I borrowed.
All right, you're using your past.
Yes.
Using things in your past. Have you said goodbye to these characters? Are you like, I'm done?
Probably.
Moving on to something else?
Yeah, I don't know what more there would be. I don't know. I mean, people have certainly.
Wait a minute. What about May? Isn't she going to have like some sort of empire? I feel like she's
maybe. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I haven't. There's no story. There's no additional story about these guys that is calling to me. Kind of just left them where they are, but it's not out of the question. I don't know. The next one, while not dissimilar in spirit, is definitely, it's just, it's different people, totally different people. And like I said, it's in New Hampshire.
Yeah, that's exciting.
Yeah, it'll be fun. I feel a little bad. I feel like, well, I don't know, is my brand Midwestern books, but it couldn't be set in the Midwest because it needs to be closer to New York. So I can't do it. There was no way, I've thought about it. Like, could I switch it? But nope, sorry, Midwest. I'll come back there.
Yeah, I think that I'm like really interested that you feel like there's no representation in the
There's
Midwest.
not. You start looking. There's not a lot. It's flyover country and book over country. People don't set a lot of stuff there. They just don't.
So what's your secret to writing? Like, how did you get this done? And where did you do it? Like,
So, when I started writing this, I was coming off of 5 or 6 years as a full-time journalist with the New York Times with frequently daily deadlines. It varied depending on the season and what we were working on, and also editing. So, I had been a full-time writer, and not just like a freelance pitching, but a full-time writer all the time for a long time. So the idea that, and then I had stopped and written a nonfiction book at pretty much the same pace. And some of that I wrote while I had the job. And I took a leave to finish that book. And then I just didn't end up going back. So I had this time where I had handed in the manuscript for the nonfiction book, and I didn't have my day job to go back to. And I had all kinds of, writerly energy. I mean, I had been working 6 or 7 hour days probably for a really long time. So I just applied that to getting this done. And then also I still wrote for them some off and on for a long time. And arguably still do or could. I haven't written for them since March, but.
So do you, do you write in the car? Are you on a computer? Do you write by longhand?
No, I mostly write on draft into a computer. I have it every book, all 2 of them at this point, has a notebook that I scribble a lot of ideas in, but I find I almost never go back and look at them. It's almost like the act of scribbling them out is all that I need. And I am really accustomed to writing directly into a keyboard. It's kind of hard for me to do anything else. But because back health and wrist health and arm health and leg, I sometimes work on a iPad with an Apple Pencil and then have it translate. I have not mastered the art of dictating. That would be nice, but it is a very weird thing to try to do.
Yeah, different.
People that I know that do it, they're really fast. Apparently it's a lot faster than typing, but I just haven't. And I don't know that it would benefit me to be any faster, because my problem doesn't tend to be that I wasn't fast. The problem tends to be that I didn't know where the story was going. So I went in the wrong direction and now I have to backtrack.
Yeah, interesting. Well, I just think it's amazing how much everybody's embraced the book. I just love it. I love that.
It has been so fun. I mean, I didn't expect it at all. It's really cool to have had this level of success the first time out of the gate. I'm always really harsh on my friends. I won't let them say they just got lucky. So I'll say it the way I want them to say it, which is I worked really hard and I got lucky. And both of those things are absolutely 100% true. So.
Yeah, well, congratulations. It's great. I love the way that people are deciding which sister they are. I think that's a really great.
That was really fun. Yeah.
Yeah. That seems to really resonate with folks. Hi, Elizabeth.
Hi, I have some audience questions. Jessica, did you have any last questions to ask before I wrest control of questions from you?
No, I want to hear what people want to know.
All right. Well, first, I'm going to say that my favorite fried chicken place in Concord is Wow Fried Chicken on Warren Street.
I have been there right before the pandemic. After, when I say right before the pandemic, I mean it was the last hockey state tournament game right before the girls lost. But yeah, like literally, and the streets were dark and it was completely empty, and we were in there eating their fried chicken. So I've been there.
It's the former Pizzarelli's spot. If you're in New Hampshire and you find everything by landmarks. It used to be Pizzarelli's, and it's next to the chainsaw carved Native American next to the cigar shop. It's a little hole in the wall. I love their chicken shawarma. It's very, very good. So that's what I'm going to say. We had someone ask, let me see if I can find this again. Alice wants to know, did you ever consider adding recipes to the book?
I didn't want to put recipes in the book because the book is kind of cute already, and I didn't want it to be any cuter, but there are recipes. So the publisher made a book club guide, and there are recipes in that. And again, you could find it on my website sort of thing, but they're totally free. And there's a recipe for fried chicken, and there's a recipe for chocolate cream pie that is super easy and super tasty, and for the salad dressing. That's it. Maybe I don't think, I didn't put a biscuit recipe in there because I don't really have a good biscuit recipe.
Did you
I'm
make
always trying things?
Did you have a specific fried chicken in mind when you were writing this book? Terry wants to know, have you ever made the fried chicken in the book?
So if you make the recipe in the book is very authentic to the time when it was written, but you will find it's not spiced enough, at least for my personal taste. So I don't make it like that because I make it with a lot. I do make it with all of those ingredients, but I also add a quarter cup of like cayenne pepper to the flour, which they wouldn't have had. So, I needed to have a recipe that they would have written a long time ago, and that would not have been in it. And because as you know, the plot of the book, it needed not to have changed. So,
and I think they even mentioned at one point in the book that you'd modernized the recipe, and the judges were like, well, how could you change it? And he's like, well, they would have fried in complete lard and never changed the oil, and that's not sanitary. And it's like, that's a good change.
Yes.
I appreciate
that.
For hygienic measures, I appreciate that you are changing the oil periodically. Thank you. For a more, have you ever, like, your opinion on air fryers? Have you ever air fried, you said that you've tried it before. Have you ever fried pickles or Oreos or Twinkies in the air fryer?
I have not fried any of those things in the air fryer or the regular fryer.
One of really disappointed.
I had hoped for a different answer. I can tell you
the most interesting thing we have fried is donuts. I think the most interesting thing we have fried is donuts, and the funniest thing we have fried is also donuts, but this time it's donuts made from, those tubes of biscuit dough. And then you can open the tube of biscuit dough, and my mother had we did this when I was little. My mother had a teeny tiny wine glass, and we would cut out I didn't grow up with a lot of alcohol accoutrements. We would cut out the donut hole, and then we would fry. And so we've done that. We've gotten the biscuit tube and made biscuit tube donuts, and biscuit tube donuts are very good. But again, I don't know how they would be in the air fryer.
Well, now we have an experiment. I feel like we need a second recipe booklet now. Although I will tell you,
fried Oreos.
Fried Oreos, I mistakenly learned that you're supposed to freeze them first, which I did not do. So it was a disaster, and I do not recommend that. So please freeze them first, otherwise they just melt and fall apart.
That's messy.
It was not great. So for a more serious question, a lot of this novel is about control and how people feel that they don't feel in control of their lives. There's Barbara, who went on one spectrum, and May, who is dealing with the same control issues and went completely the other. Amanda doesn't feel in control of her life, even though she made her choices on purpose. They're not where she wanted to be. Can you expand?
It didn't work out the way she wanted it to.
And even Nancy was just like, this isn't really what I want. Everybody's just kind of going along with things. Can you expand on the theme of control in this book?
It's absolutely what is going on. And, everybody needed to let go of their disappointment that things didn't pan out the way that they wanted them to, and their expectations, in order to open their minds up to other kinds of possibilities. So, Amanda needed to let go of her feeling that if she didn't cling to the past that she had hoped to create, she was like being somehow disrespectful to it, and open herself up to, actually, Amanda's the only one who needs to take more control. Everybody else needs to let go a little bit, but Amanda needs to grab the reins and make things happen. And that was definitely intentional, that I wanted May to need to sort of embrace what's given to her, what's available to her. But I wanted Amanda to recognize that she could make choices and go out and get things, which is not something that she had done. So it's absolutely, that's absolutely what everybody is experiencing. And I think that's kind of consistently, I feel like it's what a lot of people experience. And part of it is, you know, we try to control things because we think we know what will make us happy. And then we turn out to be dramatically wrong. And that is so frustrating, because if you don't know who's going to make you, you know, what's going to make you happy, who does? I mean, this is not helpful, right? Like, it's, yeah. So I mean, that was the theme, amusingly, of my nonfiction book, How to Be a Happier Parent, which was that, you know, we neglect doing the dumb things that will just make us happier, or even figuring out what the things are that'll make us happier. And then amusingly, it turned out to be the theme of this too. It was not on purpose. It's just sort of what happened.
So what's the next, is there a story in your back pocket that you can't wait to write? Is it also about control, or is it the Trixie Belden fan fiction?
It's all Trixie Belden fan fiction. It's a 100-book series. So it's written. Like, I'm revising right now. It absolutely has themes of control, and it is the story of a young writer who accidentally finds herself social media famous and doesn't want that or feel equipped to do it. So when the opportunity comes to step into the spotlight, she grabs her best friend and shoves her forward instead. And they end up with quite the fraudulent mess on their hands.
Ooh. And social media really makes people both feel in control until it gets out of control. And then you can't pull things back after a certain point. So that's
true.
I feel like you got to talk to somebody about this. If 1, 2, 3 books are about control. But then I saw
They're all about mothers too. So I should say that my relationship with my mother is boring, honestly.
A boring relationship with your mother is probably the best for when you're a writer. I mean, your mother's probably quite relieved to hear that.
Yeah. She is neither Barbara nor Nancy nor Aida or anyone. And I don't think she's disappointed by that.
One of the things that I did love about the mothers, speaking of the mothers in this book, is that one of the mothers have a feud, but not themselves. There's Chicken Franny's and Chicken Mimi's have this feud and this rivalry, and you're not allowed to interact with each other, but they're still neighbors. And Nancy is a nice lady, and she's just like, your mother needs help, and I'm gonna go help my neighbor. And even though there's supposed to be this grand rivalry, she's just like, I'm not a bad person, I'm gonna go help her. And that was just spoke volumes about Nancy's character, and I especially loved how it sort of shamed the daughters, you know, where they're expecting this grand feud, and Nancy just goes, shame on you. Shame. Yeah.
Really?
Why would you do that? That's just poor behavior. And I feel like Nancy was my favorite character, because you read these books and these people get into these dramatic situations. And if one person just said, this isn't very nice, how different some of these books might be. And Nancy says that. Nancy opens her mouth and says, that's not nice.
Yeah, it's true. She does. She just loses patience with the whole thing, and with everybody's expectations that she will live up to this feud that she doesn't even care about. You know, she gets her own small background journey of, wait a minute, if this isn't what I want, I don't have to do it, which so many of us need, right?
It's back to the book we were discussing at the start, the crazy, stupid.
I thought that too.
And it
just have an intelligent conversation about this.
Yeah, it really breaks the trope of where someone's like, well, I don't want to do this anymore. And it's like, you can do that as a character in a book. You can just say, no more. This is ridiculous. I don't want to do it. And I loved Nancy for that, because it made all the other characters feel ashamed of their behavior.
Except Sabrina, who is shameless.
Except Sabrina.
Gloriously shameless.
Sabrina is a character in her own right.
Maybe she gets a book. If I were writing a series, that might be where I would go.
I like that. So we have just a few more questions. What is your favorite book of all time?
My favorite book of all time is probably Gaudy Night by Dorothy Sayers. And I just love how it combines mystery with all kinds of crazy feminist and academic tropes, and it's really amazing. So that was my favorite book of all time, but my favorite books of last year, I happen to have right here, because that's a little easier. So this is so much fun. This guy, Byron Lane, he was Carrie Fisher's assistant. This is so not an exact representation in fiction of that experience, except that it totally is. And oh my gosh, it's everything you want from it. And then some, and like a totally great ending, which I was not sure he was going to be able to pull off, given that we kind of know how that ended. And then I love Jane Austen, and I loved this. And this came out in June and did not get a lot of love. But if Jane Austen were still with us and had been able to write a book about Mary Bennet and had also felt really bad about how she treated Mary, this is what she would have written. So those are my two favorite books from last year.
I like that a lot. So my last question for you before we let all of you go to bed is
you're into my screaming children that I can hear in the background.
And I heard a dog. Does the dog want to make an appearance?
The dogs are greeting the screaming children, I think. So
okay.
If they come back, I'll lift somebody up.
We like dogs here. Do you prefer drums, flats, or tenders for your chicken?
Oh, tenders. I really would just as soon not have to deal with bones. I'm so lazy. What I really like is, like, I don't know what part of the chicken the popcorn is, and I am certain that I do not want to know. But that's what I really want. Really, the more friedness on the chicken. In fact, I don't really need the chicken. If you could just fry, that's really what I go for.
Do you have favorite breading or sauce?
Yeah, breading should always have a little cornstarch in it, because that's what makes it, build up. And you can get my recipe, but you don't have to, because really all it is dry, wet, dry to get it right. So flour with salt and pepper. Then for liquid, I actually use Frank's hot sauce, but you can use buttermilk, you can use milk, you can use whatever. So flour, water, and then you get the flour with the really spicy, like that's where you want to put and that's got some cornstarch in it. And that will fry up really lovely, no matter what you put it on.
Excellent. Do you like dipping sauces at all, or do you eat it straight as it is?
I pretty much just eat it straight as it is. I am a sucker for Korean fried chicken, though, where they really, they put the hot sauce all over it. There's a place in Providence that has that. That's so good. And I have never yet had Nashville hot chicken. Although one of my friends sent me a cookbook, so I can get set. But I suspect I probably would like that.
Excellent. So I will just mention one more time that Gibson's Bookstore does have copies of The Chicken Sisters available. And I believe you are sending book plates to anybody who fills out a form.
Sure. And I just posted links at Gibson's to most of the books that we mentioned in passing. Because support Gibson's, guys. If you enjoyed this, just buy a book. I am going to buy Superhost, which I have not yet bought from my local indies, so Gibson's will get a little nibble of my local indies' usual business. That's okay. I'm practically keeping them in business at this point.
Well, I will include that list with our follow-up emails to our attendees so that everybody you don't have to rush and click through those now. I will send that out to attendees as well. And that link to get a signed book plate from you, she has a Google form, so she can pop it in the mail.
Oh, that's turned off.
Oh, you did? Okay. All right. Don't do that then. Don't do that.
Well, it says like in big letters at the top of it that it is turned off. But if anybody wants a signed book plate, then you know what? I would say message me on Instagram, but I might not see it. If anybody wants a signed book plate, then
you could mail some to our store.
I could mail some to your store. I could absolutely do that. Or yeah, that would work.
That would work.
Turn the Google Doc back on too, but I probably won't do it like right away. So I wanted to give some of these people something that they could do right right this minute. So if you want me to send you a signed book plate, go with the DMs on Instagram or Facebook, and I'll make a point of looking.
Excellent. That sounds like a plan. We will have a list of those books that we will send out to attendees as well. And if you're watching this on YouTube later, we'll put that into the description as well. Thank you for everybody joining us. Oh, do we have a dog?
Oh my gosh. Cute.
Oh my goodness.
So cute. Yeah.
Who is this?
That's Crypto.
Crypto.
Feeling and knocking over lamps.
I love when authors show us their pets. It is the best part of an event. Sorry, I shouldn't say that to the author, but
I enjoy that part too. So.
Your dog is very cute.
You're very cute, Crypto.
Thank you everybody for joining us this evening. I hope you have a lovely evening. Thank you, KJ. Thank you, Jessica. Have a great night, everybody.
Bye. Thanks.